Here's a quick look at what we need. I'll go over this in more detail later, but basically I'm going to show you what you can make with it. Bunch of little fish. Okay, so here are the materials that we'll need for our scrap fish. So first off, we have the actual scrap itself. As long as it can fit this like that, where it's got it duplicated, it's big enough. Then we have buttons for the eyes. We have needles. I use these. They were on sale and cheap, but as long as it's a needle you can put thread through, you're good. Then we have some stuffing. This is probably twice as much of what we need, if not more, but it's there. And then we have these clips. I prefer using these to anything else, but if you need, you can use just regular binder clips, and you'll see how those work when we get into the tutorial. Then we have our thread. Whatever colors you want to use, doesn't really matter. Just go for it. And then we have scissors. Mine are fabric only, nothing else. But as long as it cuts, it's good enough. So we'll get into our tutorial now. Okay, so our first step is going to be patterning the fish. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to fold it inside out. So we want to have the gray, starry kind of stuff on the outside. So you're just going to fold it over itself. The grain of the fabric, you can see with this cotton, it's like a grid. That really does not matter here. We're just kind of freeballing with it. And you basically just take the pattern, you're going to put that on top. Grab a marker. I like using this Expo just because it doesn't run out of ink or anything very easily. It's nice and reliable. Really doesn't matter. It will show through on the other side, but this is just a scrap fish. The idea is that you have fun with it, not for it to be perfect. Now that we have this outlined here, we can add whatever we want to it. So we can actually flip it around maybe. We can mark a spot for the eyes. I like to hold the marker on here. Sorry, I've just realized this has been focused on my hands rather than the actual fish. I don't have a proper recording setup. But basically then you just go ahead, you can draw fins on it, you can change the shape of the tail to your liking. I like to just use the base pattern because you can modify it however you want to get different shapes, but this is what we have right now. And then we're going to use those clips, or you use binder clips, it does not matter. I just like to put one here. And then we're basically just going to cut this out, so I'll be back for that. Alright, so we have our little scrap fish here. He's been cut out and he's ready to go. Notice that I've left kind of an edge around the pattern. Basically the fabric that I'm using, cotton, it kind of tears through really quickly, really easily. So I like to sew along this line here. This edge kind of acts as a buffer to keep it from tearing. But yeah, next step is to stitch them all up. So when you're getting ready to stitch up, the way I like to do this is I like to thread my needle, take it to halfway, and then just kind of knot the end over and over until it won't slip out from the fabric. Now, the amount of times that you need to knot it kind of depends on the fabric you're working with. For cotton, I do several times. And once you have it ready, you basically just start up. I usually start at the base of the tail fin here. And the way we're going to do this is with a nice little blanket stitch, so pull through to get it started. And if I'm using any wrong terminology, and you know more about sewing than I do, let me know, because I'm all self-taught. I don't actually know if blanket stitch is the right word for this. Basically, you take it here, you stick the needle halfway through, you loop it, and you pull, and that will basically leave some thread that kind of secures it over top. And then we basically just are going to repeat this all the way around. This can be a little bit tedious, so at this stage I would put on a show you like to watch, maybe a YouTube video that you enjoy. I don't know, and just be careful that the string doesn't get caught on the clips that you have in place, because that can happen, it's quite annoying. But ideally you'll have this, and this will actually take a hot minute, so maybe like 30 minutes. I will come back when it's done and ready for the next step. Something else to note while working on delicate parts such as the tail, if you pull too tightly, as you can see here, the fabric will kind of get bent in a way. You just kind of want to gently flatten it, let the string pull back a bit. That way when your fish is finished, it won't have the tail sticking out to one side or the other. Something else to note is that at some point or another, you'll run out of string to work with when you're sewing. So what I do at this point is I clip it, put that down. This might be a little bit tricky to do on camera, but what I prefer to do in this case is tie a knot that will kind of lock it in place. So I take this, take that. Okay. And that will basically make a little secure knot. And then for extra durability, I like to twist it around. Sorry, normally I do this in the air. I'm not used to doing this on a flat surface, but I wanted it to be visible. Take that, press down, pull through. Don't pull too tightly or else you'll mess up your stitches. And then you just clip the excess and boom! This part is now secured, and we'll keep going around the fish. Also, once you end one thread, I recommend not starting after that thread, but actually starting during it, just at the very end. And this will basically help lock it in more and secure it. That way the whole thing is a little bit more durable for you. Okay, so here we have our fish. He's mostly stuffed up. He's got a string trailing off of him. And the next step that we're going to follow is to turn him inside out. Now, I recommend doing this very carefully because these guys are kind of delicate. You'll want to have made sure that your stitches are close together enough that nothing will kind of tear or that your fingers won't poke through to the other side. I've just kind of torn him open there by accident. But the good part about Scrapfish is that you don't have to worry too much because no matter how they look, you can fix them up. But anyways, we have this here. Here's our face. You can see that pattern coming through, which is very nice. And basically, you just kind of wiggle it around. Kind of squeezing it like this sort of helps. Kind of use the end of a marker, or carefully use closed scissors to kind of poke those nasty little corner bits. And then for the fin up top, you just kind of go in there and push that through as well. The idea is that you'll see stitching all around the edge of the fish. If you don't see stitches somewhere, you might want to try pushing it a little bit more, such as like right here. So we'll just get in there and just gently kind of whoop. I don't know what those sound effects are, but there we go. So now next up, you're basically, well, I'm going to take a second and fix what tore here. Ideally you want about, you know what, actually this is good. You want about that much space, and being mindful of the thread, you're just going to stuff them up. It can be a little bit tricky to open. I recommend approaching it like a plastic bag. Kind of crinkle it, and there you go, you have your opening. And you just start shoving stuffing in there. I recommend starting towards the face, just like that. And you just kind of break pieces off. Go smaller than you think you need to, because you can always add more stuffing, but I found that taking some out is a little bit of a hassle. And occasionally just tug on that string, make sure you have it there, because if that string gets stuck into the body with the stuffing, it's gonna pull out all of the stuffing when you go to pull out that string. And for the fin, you just kind of stuff it in there. I don't like the fins to be too thick, but it's really personal preference. And you just kind of keep going. So yeah, and then once you have enough stuffing to your liking, you basically just stitch this up. You can either go with sort of a whip stitch, where for example, you just take it through, yoink, or you go with the blanket stitch again, where you loop it around and pull it through. I'm probably going to do a blanket stitch for this. So once this is fully stuffed and sewn up, I will be back. Alright, so we have our fish sewn up. We're going to put some buttons on it for the eyes. We're going to do some like little details along the body, and we're basically just going to pretty it up. Alright, so for making the eyes of our fish, we're going to start by kind of inserting our needle between the stitches. We're going to put it through. This is a spot that I marked out earlier. You basically just gently tug it, so that way the knot actually slips through into the fish. So now the knot is right under here. Now, I've decided to go with white eyes tend to stand out better on dark gray, so we're going to do white eyes. So you take that button, just kind of whoop, and it falls in place. Now we're going to very carefully just stick through that other hole, stick through, and then pass it through the other side. Now this part is black here actually, so the mark that I made does not show up. So we're going to have to guess, and say we want the other eye there. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is a Scrapfish. It's for fun. Just gently tug through, make sure you have that on there. This is a very silly looking fish. But anyways, our next white button, we're gonna do the same thing. So just yoink it on a needle, let it fall, or push it. And basically just do the same thing. Now poke through on the other side, punch back up through the eye, pull it tight. Not too tight though, otherwise your fish is gonna have a face that gets like squished in. You can see it's happened here a little bit, but it's fine. It looks it looks really funny. Now next step, you're gonna repeat this again. Basically what we're doing here is making sure the thread is passed through both eyes twice, and that will make it a more durable fishy. So there we go. We got our eyes secured. Now here we could either tie off the knot, or we could keep going with some decorations, which I feel like doing. So I'm going to show my favorite way to decorate this fish. Punch through to the inside. And now it's kind of like weaving. So just go up and under over the surface. Okay. You see how it's like that. And we're just going to gently, carefully pull that through. Again, you don't want to pull it too tight or else your fish will have a weird looking body. Yeah, don't worry about the stuffing or anything. It doesn't matter. And there you go. Now we're going to repeat that on the other side. So if it gets caught up like this, I just kind of gently try to grab that other loop with the needle and then try to get them even with each other like that. And then I just kind of gently pull again and it goes away most of the time. If not, then I just kind of live with it. And now for finishing it off, I like to go to the other side usually, and then I just do the same process of tying knots that I've been doing the whole time. And then the next step after this would be like the fins and more decoration. Another good way to decorate these fish is by kind of accentuating the fins. It's pretty simple. All you do is take that thread, bring it to the other side. Sorry, the camera was not looking then. There we go. Pull it through. You want to be gentle with this. The idea is to kind of flatten the fin just a little bit and adding some texture. This is also kind of nice. Kind of poke. Kind of alternate sides. So one side will likely end up with more fin rays. I believe ray is the right term for it when you're thinking about fish anatomy. Anyways, just kind of pull through. And you keep going with that until you're happy. So for me, it probably will be once I'm at the end of the fin. One of the irritating parts about making these is that they tend to get stuck very easily on the tail fin. But yeah, you just gotta be a little bit patient with it. And eventually, there we go. Pull that through. This through. Alright, and then you repeat the same process on the tail here. And there you go, you have one completed, very silly looking scrapfish. What are you doing?